So today we're talking about continuous quality improvement and the process that we've laid the foundation for across the state, and the CQI plan that is involved in the process of continuous quality improvement, and how county teams can develop a CQI plan that will help utilize data to make decisions within the PreK team, and also to make recommendations to county strategic planning teams. We've been out over the last couple of years introducing this and reviewing the CQI process throughout the state, but it's a process that's kind of complex, and we want to revisit it and provide any kind of support. And also we want to emphasize that each county's CQI process and each county's CQI plan is going to vary based on the unique dynamics of each and every county and each and every county team. So we thought that it would be best that we start with the guidance manual, which is there to help counties have a reference to go in and utilize to help develop and ongoing. Okay, I'm just going to take just a second to remind everyone to mute your phone. That way you have the capability to unmute if you have a comment or question. Okay, for those of you who are not sure.
No, he doesn't. Well, Mom, let me call you in a little bit. I got to do this webinar here right now, and I'll call you after a while.
Okay, I have to mute everyone because we have some background noise. Sorry, we thought we'd try. So how do you get to the guidance manual? If you go to the Office of Early Learning's website, and the address is on the screen right now, in case anyone doesn't have that. You just go to the State Department's website and then do /OEL and / again, and it'll take you to our main screen. If you go to Universal Pre-K and then go to Overview, the third tab down under Universal Pre-K is the Program Assessment and Improvement. When you click on that page, the guidance manual is the third item in the list. When you download it, you have the whole document at your fingertips. And it includes recognition of those who helped with this process of developing the Continuous Quality Improvement Plan. And for those of you who've been through training on the CQI process, you know that it all started about 11 years ago when West Virginia Pre-K was developed. And one way, in the beginning, one way that the continuous quality improvement was looked at was through the Theeckers. So in policy about 2005, with the revisions to the 2005 policy 2525, there were provisions for each county to complete Theeckers each year. Well, many counties, many classrooms had the Theeckers done year after year after year, and oftentimes got the same results after the first couple of years. In the very beginning, the Theeckers served a wonderful purpose. It helped elevate health and safety standards in classrooms. It helped counties determine purchasing needs for equipment and materials. and it helped them look at where they needed to provide staff development for pre-K teachers across the state, and county by county. So it really had a great function. However, slowly but surely, it started to dwindle down in that function. And now, policy says that the ECHRS has to be done once every 3 years. Does that mean that you don't go into the classrooms every year and provide support and complete observations to determine those needs that we just mentioned? Staff development, program equipment, materials, health and safety standards, those things. No, what that means is that on those years that the ECHRS is not completed in a classroom, other tools have to be selected and utilized to collect data. Even more than that, there's ongoing data that is being collected within the county, more globally, and we're going to talk about some of the other data sources and ways to analyze data to determine really what it is that you need to, what goals need to be set for pre-K programs. So it went from the ECHRS, a process for the ECHRS, to a more thorough process for program assessment and improvement. And so basically in this guide, it talks about the purpose of program assessment and improvement, and it talks about how the ECHRS is now folded into a much more comprehensive system. It is addressed in policy. I do want to pull up the policy. And for those of you who didn't know, we have policy 2525 on a Google site, which is I utilize every single day, where you can actually go through section by section to look at things that you need to find in policy 2525. But if you look in particular at section 18 of policy 2525, program assessment and continuous quality improvement, when you look at section 18.1c, it illustrates that the county collaborative team will develop a continuous quality improvement plan, which includes program assessment data, analysis of the results, and recommendations for quality improvement. The results from the pre-K CQI plan, or continuous quality improvement plan, should be incorporated in the county strategic planning team process as well. And so the guidance manual actually takes you through the process of doing that. So we want to just kind of take you through that process. When you utilize the program guide or the guidance document, so you have the introduction, which just talks about the things that I've talked about, why we do it, why it's in policy, and then it takes you through some of the definitions. So that's just a tool for each of you to utilize. Then we actually go through the CQI plan. And there are three main pieces. Three main pieces to developing this system and the continuous quality improvement plan. You have data sources and review. So with data sources and review, you have to determine where you're going to collect the data from. This includes internal classroom observations, including the ECHRS. There's the class. For those of you who use Creative Curriculum, there's the Creative Curriculum Implementation Checklist. For those who utilize HighScope, there's the HighScope PQA, or Program Quality Assessment Tool. There's the West Virginia Universal Pre-K Observational Walkthrough. There's the ECHRS-E, which looks more in-depth at content areas such as math, science, language, and literacy. and diversity, and there's other tools that are available as well. So basically, a team has to determine what data sources they're going to utilize and when they're going to review the results from each data source. Other data sources may include the pre-K program review process and results from that, Head Start monitoring reviews, principal walkthroughs, and one of the biggest ones is child assessment data. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So once you determine what tools you're going to use, you have to determine who's going to gather the information. So for those classrooms that have to have the Theeckers completed on a particular year, when are the Theeckers observers going to provide the information to the core team, to the collaborative team? When are the other classroom observations going to be completed, and when are the people who do them going to provide the results to the county team to analyze? And how are you all going to keep the data together in order to keep it as an ongoing document? So you have to have a formal process for determining your sources and when you're going to review the results from the sources. And then a formal process for ongoing analysis and determination of recommendations. Because when you analyze your results, you have to determine what you're going to do with those results. This is all laid out in the guidance manual. And just a sidebar about the guidance manual, the policy has been revised since this document was released, and some of the references to Policy 2525 go to the old policy. But Policy 2525 will be revised this year, and those changes to this document will be made in conjunction with that. So right now we're still utilizing this document even though it cites the old pieces of policy. Those pieces of policy haven't changed, and this document will be re-released with the new Policy 2525. And basically it's just a change in section for continuous quality and improvement. So let's take a look at the CQI plan. And I just want to show you on the web page under the Program and Assessment and Improvement section, you can actually pull up a template, a CQI Plan template. It was distributed over the pre-K listserv, but it's also been posted on the web now. So you can actually download a template. We put that in Word, and we did that intentionally so that programs could take the document and change it as they need. So basically, we just gave you a template. There's nothing that says you have to use this and that. It's a form that you have to utilize. In fact, I'm just going to go through it with you this morning and talk a little bit about how you can, change it to meet the needs of your county. For instance, in looking at the data sources first. And I do want to point out that at the top, even though this school year is 2013-2014, this document is going to be a live document for each county to utilize. So it's basically not a form that you just fill out and print out and you're done with it. It's a live document that will be updated frequently. Anytime you have a pre-K meeting, this absolutely should be one of the things on your agenda that you would address in an ongoing fashion. Mostly because you will have data sources that will have results in an ongoing fashion. And let me just kind of show you on here. I did an example under data sources. One was the ECRS-R. And I just kind of, if I were utilizing this as a live document with my county, and let's just say for this school year we are doing the ECRS, we're completing the ECRS in 3 classrooms. And we included the people that were going to do the ECRS. And all ECRS have to be done annually by May 1st of that school year. So we just put that by May 1st we will have those documents. The timeline can be set by you all. If you believe that the ECRS should be done in the fall, then you can put the timeline or the actual dates that they're planned to be completed in each of the classrooms that you include for that. And let's just say in my county we're going to do the class in my 3 other classrooms. So we just include who's doing the class, who's going to utilize the class, and under the timeline you can actually put the date that is going to occur for each one. And so on and so forth. You can make this work for you and your county collaborative team. Another thing that I put in mine was that the health and safety checklist will be completed in every classroom, and it will be done by November of 2013. And the persons responsible may be a principal. It may be an education coordinator. It could be a variety of people. It could be done by a child care collaborative. Another data source that we put in there, and this will be utilized on an ongoing basis as well, is the child assessment data. And you will utilize this from all classrooms. You can go into the ELS platform and generate county reports that include all classrooms in the pre-K program. Who's going to be responsible for generating this report? This is where you all will determine that. And the timelines you can include, we just included last year's growth data report and comparing it with each of the new checkpoints. So this would be an ongoing timeline where anytime a checkpoint ended, you got the new data, you could utilize that piece as this in this too. And we also, just as another example, the pre-K program review results. So let's say that the pre-K steering team is coming out to visit your county and complete a pre-K program review. The recommendations and the information that's included in those pre-K program review reports, we look at those as another data source. So they're not the end of continuous quality improvement for the process. They're more of a data source for a county collaborative team to utilize the information as another data source. It's looked at this way just to really look at it with another set of eyes. So as we go through this part with the data sources, does anyone have any questions or comments? We've had to mute you all, so if you want to make a comment, you can raise your hand or you can type in the chat box.
While you're taking a few minutes to think if you might have any questions that you'd like to engage in any conversation with us about, I just wanted to say that, again, you have a lot of data sources at your fingertips that you may want to consider may be relevant as part of the pre-K program review. There are parent survey results. You may be doing that every year in your county. That's something else you might want to consider, how that might impact your CQI process, as well as attendance data. There's a host of other probably data sources and things that we've just attempted to give you a sampling just for a flavor of that. In addition, I also want to take the opportunity to briefly say regarding the health and safety checklist that some of you may be beginning to hear from your Head Start partners that Head Start has a health and safety screener, and every Head Start grant in the country is going through a process of being converted to a 5-year grant, and through that conversion process there is a need and I guess a requirement to complete these health and safety screeners. So I encourage you to work with your Head Start partner to find out more information about that and see how that might play into your ongoing CQI process.
Okay, so we have a question. Is there a minimum? Whoops. Sorry. Is there a minimum recommendation for data sources? We don't have a minimum recommendation. However, we encourage you to really really determine as a team what information do you want to gather, what data do you really need to analyze to make good decisions about staff development, about purchasing, about recommendations to your county strategic planning team, about recommendations to the state about more global trainings. We're constantly surveying the field to determine what ideas and what needs you all have for PreK Leadership Institute, our webinars, and any other supports that we put into place as well. So we don't have a minimum, but we really want you to critically analyze and determine from your team's viewpoint what you believe your minimum should be. I do want to show you in the guidance manual under data sources, it kind of provides a list of other suggestions as well. I've gone too far. No, I haven't. These are some of the classroom observation tools that are recommended in the program guidance manual, but also other sources of information. There's just a short list as well, and this is not a comprehensive list. It's just a tickler to help you get to think of some other ways that you may have other data sources that are already available at your fingertips. One thing that isn't included that is on this list that is included and that oftentimes you do have access to is if you enter health data into the WEBIS or the ELS platform, the health data is another great source of information as far as community needs go as well.
At some point, thinking about what you want this process to help you learn about your program or help you to see your program in a different way might assist you in answering the question of how many data sources you may need to help paint a picture of which data may help you create that picture so you can then use that information in a meaningful way in your program.
Okay, so let's talk a few minutes about data review. So under the data review, you have these boxes, and they're just available for you to type in, and you can utilize it how you wish. But basically, for each data source, you have a place that you can record the results from what you review. So here we just included the data source, which the first one on the list was the Theeckers. The classrooms included and the dates that they were completed. So once they're completed, or you can update this box. Let's say in October you did, the Theeckers was done in 2 classrooms. In October you can do this, and then when the 3rd classroom or the 4th classroom is done, you can add to the information. And basically just keep your ongoing notes in the summary. This is what we're finding in the various classrooms. So let's say that you noticed a trend with the Theeckers that health and safety seemed to be the lowest score, and that it was a result of playground issues. You would keep your notes in here to help you keep track of things that you already identified. And so when you go to prepare budgets, when you go to prepare recommendations for your county strategic planning team, or when you go to write contracts among your team members, you can pull this out to help you determine what you need to focus on to grow. And so these are just your live notes throughout the process of your summary from each of your data sources. So when we developed this, we started out with 4 boxes up in data sources, and then there were 2 sections called 4 sections called data review. If that's not enough, tweak this form or create your own form to really articulate how you can utilize the information and keep your notes effectively. So as you go through the document, you can see we have data review 4 different times here, but it may be more, it may be less. And then there's a section just to kind of illustrate who's been participating in this process. And this can be utilized as a one-time at the end of the year, or it can be utilized ongoing, however your team feels it works best. So let's talk a little bit about recommendations. When you look at recommendations, you may have recommendations for an individual classroom to support a supervisor or a principal and a teacher, or you may have recommendations for a building, for more than one classroom, with shared space, or some of the recommendations may be more global. They may be across many classrooms and maybe more of a county recommendation. So basically what you have to determine is, are there recommendations that you really need to make on an individual basis, and then what recommendations do need to be identified as more global? What we've done is we've just developed a format, and the one that's on the screen this is one that's for building classroom recommendations for buildings or classrooms. And it's just, these are big rocks. If you have a whole lot of recommendations, then you kind of get lost in the recommendations and you don't make a lot of improvements. So basically what the team needs to decide is for a building or a classroom, are there 1 or 2 very big rocks that you really would like to see set as a goal for change in the near future? If you have 5 things, oftentimes none of them get done. So there's one thing. And for instance, maybe you have one school that has probably the playground that's the least safe. So at this building, let's just say at Building A, we know that the playground, the equipment is not appropriate for the children. There are major safety concerns. So the biggest recommendation would be to enhance the playground for safety. And then you would include that just modifications to the playground. Under activities and action steps, what's the main thing on the playground that's going to increase the safety first? Is it removal of a piece of equipment? Is it creating a fall zone? Where did you get the information from? Costs that may come along with making this improvement? Who would be responsible? And oftentimes this is collaborative, just like our overall program. This may be if there's a cost involved, it may be a cost that could be shared between agencies. So more than one agency or person can be included in this. And then when realistically can this be completed? And so you utilize this document to help break down the process and to really achieve certain goals. Again, we can't reiterate enough how much you need to focus on as few goals as possible to really get things accomplished. I know that when I actually utilized this process in the counties that I worked in, we started out with 10 goals, and then we were so overwhelmed by all the goals we didn't know where to start. And when you provided recommendations to county strategic planning teams or governing bodies, it was just too much. They couldn't prioritize, and so nothing would get done. So in the CQI plan, the next section is actually the overall county recommendations. And this is the one that the core team would really use to determine next steps based on things that the core team can really do. This may be where recommendations would be included for staff development. So, one of your data sources is the child assessment data and county reports on child assessment data. And I'll tell you, 12 years ago when I ran my first county report with child assessment data, the first thing that I saw was that teachers needed further support on how to collect data. I saw gaps in the data. I saw missing pieces that I saw where every child in certain places were put at the first level, and the expectation was that they went to the top level in the school year. And so I saw that teachers didn't really know how to collect and report data. And that was 12 years ago, 15 years ago. I don't even remember how long it was. But so I knew from the data, the child assessment data, that teachers didn't know how to oftentimes collect the data. Some knew how to collect and report the data, but weren't comfortable with the platform, so they needed support with the technology. So the data really told me lots of things that I needed to do. So my recommendation and activities and action steps were to develop staff development to ensure that teachers were supported in child assessment. And so I went through the process of doing that and then reanalyzing the child assessment data for that purpose, along with gains that children made too. There may be other global recommendations that you all have. One of the things that may result from analyzing global data from the early childhood team perspective would be that you all, a county may decide that you want to participate in the early learning standards framework professional development in math and science, or that you want to tap into some financial resources to bring someone in to develop training. And the last one is the Continuous Quality Improvement Report. And this is recommendations that you would make to a county strategic planning team. These are the very, very big rocks that you would need more assistance globally from that strategic planning team at the county level or at a school level even. Yeah, health and safety oftentimes falls into this. These are things that oftentimes you you set goals, and with the county strategic planning team that really looks at maybe some major spending or quality improvement that they may, other grade levels in a school building may have already identified too, and that you would, as pre-K, you would be attached to that as well. So this is the avenue to include yourself more globally. One question that we have is the CQI plan designed to be used mainly for classroom improvement, or could it also be used to improve recruitment, placement, and collaborative efforts? Absolutely. If your data sources reveal that you have some recruitment issues or placement issues or other collaborative efforts, you use your data sources to just improve the quality from every angle. So if that's what your data is telling you, it's a great way of documenting and seeing proof of what you may feel is already a struggle anyway. And when you're immersed in a program, which you all are, you sometimes know what the issues are, and you can feel those issues, but having a true data source to say, here's our proof. This is what our data is telling us. This is what our reports, our numbers are telling us. Then you have concrete materials to take to other advisories and other boards to really rally up the support to get the things that you need. And that's the overall objective, is to have true documentation of things that need to be improved, and then a plan on how to improve them. The other thing is that the one thing that we haven't addressed is that oftentimes the CQI process and the data sources, the data collection, will illustrate strengths of a program too. And I think that that is just as important, because you can utilize that information to help others become stronger, and to also tap into other neighbors who may be strong at one area and to share resources as well. So this process doesn't just help you look at where you're not doing so well, but where you really are doing well, and how to how to continue with the positive growth that you have in your county. We oftentimes take, when we go in and do program reviews, or we're working with a county, we're coming in and at the request of a county, we will take their strength and ask to share the ideas that counties have come up with, because you all live and breathe how to grow your programs every day, and you're faced with the challenges very concretely. So when do you update this plan? You have your recommendations. They're ongoing. You could pull recommendations based if you continue to collect your data and continue to analyze it on an ongoing basis as you gather it. There are some times when you really have to stop and formally look at everything you've done and step back and reassess your data sources and determine, are these still effective data sources? Much like we did with the Theeckers. After several years of completing the Theeckers in every classroom, at one point, counties stepped back and said, okay, this Theeckers data is useless. What other things do I need to do? as a county team, you really have to step back sometimes. Maybe it's once a year in the spring or as the school year is winding down, and look at, are our data sources in line with what we need to see, or do we need to weed out some and look at others for possibilities for growth? So the last piece of it is system monitoring and updates. And I say it's the last piece, but it's the beginning piece as well. It's that ongoing piece of really saying, all right, have we met outcomes? Are we ensuring follow-up is happening? And what do we need to change for this plan?
Hopefully you can naturally see that there could be a natural connection between this process and your budget development. So if you have opportunities within your year to begin planning ahead for the next year around resources towards professional development or purchasing or that type of thing, that might also help guide you when that natural time to step back and look at some of your data might need to occur, or you might want it to occur within your program, so you can begin looking at some of this information to assist you in that budget development process.
Okay, so we've basically covered the whole process of CQI in just a little bit of time. One thing we want to do as we wind down is look at the role of the PreK team in relation specifically to the CQI plan, but also more globally. So, all right. So who's ultimately responsible for developing and maintaining the continuous quality improvement plan? Well, it's the same people who are responsible for maintaining the PreK program, the overall program. So you have your core team, who oftentimes this is the group of people that really sit down and make the decisions. In Policy 2525, it defines the core team. In 4.1 under the Early Childhood Collaborative Team, it says that at a minimum they must have representation from the county school system preschool program, the county system preschool special needs program, a licensed child care program that's not operated by the school system, and the Head Start program in that county. It also includes a representative from the local Department of Health and Human Resources or resource and referral agency, and a parent or guardian of a current preschool child. The one thing I do want to point out about this is that the child care representative, especially in bigger counties where there are more than one licensed child care center, that team must vote on who is their representative. So it's not determined by the PreK core team, it's actually determined by the child care community. So they have to go through the process of electing a representative, and that representative is really essentially responsible for being the voice of the other child care centers in that county as well. Is there anything you want to add to that, Missy?
No, I think it should be determined every year. You know, who will be the representative. They should elect that every year. And, but it should be the child care community that does it. So you've already stated that.
So they need to reassess every year their representative. That's a good point. So this core team really it's a very powerful team who is charged with the implementation of preschool programming. But they can't do it all by themselves. And that's why the full collaborative early childhood team and individuals on the full team are just as important as the core team. The core team really has to they're the facilitators. So they're charged with the ongoing monitoring of every process in pre-K. So this core team should really assess individuals on the full team. Is everyone invited, not at all times, but at certain times, to be a part of the team and to provide various perspectives and input? The core team has to make some of the ultimate decisions, but they can't do that without support from individuals on this full team. And what we did was just included some of the potential participants on full teams. And this varies from county to county because of the variations in resources from county to county as well. But as you can see, there are a lot of different individuals who can provide great insight. For instance, if you recognize through your data that you're really struggling with the transition process into pre-K and out of pre-K, or that you need to develop a transition and school readiness plan, you need to bring certain people from the full team onto that process, and that would include representation from classroom teachers. That would include someone from the birth to 3 world and others. So it just depends on what specifically you really need to achieve as a team, sometimes on who you would invite to certain meetings and things like that. And the reason I say this is, for instance, the county WEVIS contact, or WVEIS. They don't like to be called WEVIS. That person is a great source of information, knows the ins and outs. We work with that office here at the state level very intimately. But they aren't present at every pre-K meeting. They have a whole other job to do as well. So having a system of communication to ensure that they are part of the full team as they're needed, and you're also honoring their time, is very important as well. And when you're looking at the CQI plan, basically what goals and recommendations you really have to analyze. You really want to look at your full team and analyze, are there people who need to be added to the full team as a result of your recommendations? All right. So we've covered every piece quickly of the CQI plan, and we've looked at the role of the core team and the full team and how you can incorporate various individuals. We just want to leave the next 10 minutes for you all to, if you want to talk with your group and see if you have questions as a group, you can ask those questions. Or if you have questions later, you can always email one of the steering team members, and we will share that as well. So right now we're just gonna kind of sit back and let you all have time to determine if you have questions, and then we'll end at 11 o'clock.
Maybe the only time change maybe somewhere like in April or May. Maybe say we have to do a summary every year or something. We really haven't done that, but maybe.
Oh, good question. Okay, we have a question, and the question is, we will receive our audit next year for Berkeley County. Will you use the plan in the audit? We will look to see that you have a plan in place and that you're utilizing it to make program decisions. If you're really struggling with the CQI plan, we'll make recommendations on how, based on what you're currently doing, on how you can improve that process too. So the program review process is going to be one more data source, and so if you're not utilizing the CQI process, we'll guide you on how to do that. So we'll support you in that process individually. So we will look at it. Good question. I forgot to mention again, if you'd rather ask your question out loud, you can raise your hand on your dashboard, and then we'll just unmute individuals who want to have the audio piece of it. Sometimes it's easier just to talk. Okay, we have a question. Please review some of the ways to do the parent survey. That's a really good question, and I think that I can take you to it. Oops. Oh, I can't take you to it without going into my email, sorry. But when we send out the link to the parent survey, we send those out every year to the class or to the counties that are going to be participating in a program review. However, if you're not participating in a program review this year, you could still take advantage of the parent survey process. And basically what happens is you get the link to the parent survey, you share it with your families, and you set a timeline for parents to respond. And once that timeline has passed, I can go in and generate an aggregated report that shows all of the results from all the parents who completed the survey. And you can utilize the information gathered in the survey as a data source for programming. That's a really good question. So you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be your year for the program review. We do it a month within the program review to collect parent information for the program review as another source for that. But For instance, last year, Putnam County asked that they have the opportunity to utilize the online platform to collect the data. And basically, she said that the county coordinator contacted me. She set the timelines, and when the date ended, I sent her a report. And she had that information. So if you want to do that at a time outside of the program review, you just contact me, and we'll put it together.
That's a great resource. And then again, only because your question says some of the ways, keep in mind again that we've chosen to use that tool as part of the program review. That's why it was designed, and the Department of Ed is making that available. But you as a county collaborative team could also obviously pursue another way to collect that information. If you thought you would like to know more, for instance, maybe this parent survey doesn't ask all the questions you'd like to know about your county, you could certainly develop your own survey, and you maybe could use SurveyMonkey, or even just, counting things up and and a spreadsheet or something like that to aggregate your information. So you have lots of freedom to decide about how you may want to get feedback from parents.
Okay, it's 11 o'clock, so if you have further questions as you think about this, or if your team is meeting today, or if you're going to look at this at another time, please feel free to contact someone from our steering team, and we will be happy to do any kind of follow-up around CQI. We believe it is an integral piece of it's an absolute necessity for quality programming, and so we're always happy to talk about it. So we would just want to end by saying Happy Friday, and again, just email us with any questions that you have, and hopefully we will have this up within the next week for those who couldn't be here, or if you need to review any piece of it.